What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So use our code NATION, NATION, in all caps. We got our friend Pat Maroon hopping on the show today. Not sure what time yet. Still waiting for him to get back to me on that. But I love the chat going already, giving us a bet for tonight because my bets have lost 3 nights in a row. So we're going to go to the chat for something tonight. Still don't know what. I see a lot of different comments, some goal scorers, Florida money line. We'll pick one a little bit later. Before we get into anything else, that's my partner, Colby Cohen. Colby, what's going on with you?
It's a pretty busy morning over here, actually, at my house.
Good vibes, though, it seems.
Yes, Sloan was very entertaining this morning on the pre-show meeting. She had a lot to say and a lot to add. How much hockey did you?
Sloan did confirm that the Rangers are back. By the way, Colby's daughter said the Rangers are back.
She did not say that. For the record, just curiously, because obviously you were at Madison Square Garden last night covering that game. When you got home, what did you get into? Which games did you watch?
I saw the end of the Edmonton-Washington game, so I saw the Nacho Gate. Did you see that play happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was wild. So I saw the Nacho thing happen.
Well, and I saw everybody saying that should be a penalty. Isn't it? Don't they do a warning first? Isn't that generally how that works when there's an issue with fans throwing anything onto a field? Or
there's always a warning. Warning.
Because I saw people saying that should be a penalty right away. I think usually they give a warning the first time. Although I guess, I don't know. Like, it's the home building. I mean, how much did it really affect the play? I'm not sure it did. Although Logan
Thompson right away was
away. But let me ask you a question. How often does a goaltender let in a goal and then right away start pointing at the ref and freaking out and calling attention?
All the time, but I got to imagine a plate of nachos is actually pretty distracting. I don't blame Logan Thompson at all here.
I thought it was funny as they were scraping it up off the ice. It's still intact, which is kind of gross all within itself. Who does that? That's
crazy.
Stupid.
I think Jazz said he has the video of the guy actually throwing it. So I got to get that video from Jazz.
Yeah, why don't you text him and see if we can get that for the show?
I will.
But look, that Capitals Oilers game, that could be a Stanley Cup preview. I feel like everybody has now come around on the fact that it's not just a fluke that the Washington Capitals are a good hockey team, but I still don't feel like they're getting the respect that they deserve. I really don't. This is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. I mean, they're getting Stanley Cup level goaltending. They've got guys who can score. You got to think they're going to add at the trade deadline, at least, push the chips in a little bit. I don't see how you can't when you have Alexander Ovechkin, barreling down the back nine of his career. And that, I know that's an obvious statement, but I don't know how you can waste the career year of Dylan Strome and the way Protas is playing. And then, PLD, a guy that we've ridiculed him on this show before. I mean, we have ridiculed, maybe that's not, maybe we haven't ridiculed him. I have, right? And
I've been a little bit harsh, but I haven't ridiculed him.
he's been playing on the inside all year. I mean, I know Jeremiah watches every Caps game, and I don't know if we have any other everyday Caps watchers in the chat. But Dubois, man, his whole game now is inside the dots. You just don't see him floating outside the dots. When do you see that? And they will get Ryan Leonard at some point, who I really do expect him to have a Chris Kreider or a Charlie McAvoy type of, join up, Cale Makar type of impact on the NHL playoffs. I think that's possible.
My question right now, though, is where are they putting them? Like, you got some pretty established right wingers right now, and Connor McDavid has had a great year. Tom Wilson, 20 goals last night. I know Ethan Frank's been on the third line right now. Is that where you put Ryan Leonard on the third line?
Listen, you find room. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no doubt in my mind that you just make room for him. And here's the other thing. You don't need to solve for that problem today.
Yeah.
And it's actually one thing having worked for a couple of teams.
Mhm.
Don't solve tomorrow's problem today, because
Yeah.
tomorrow's problem in sports will probably take care of itself with an injury, a suspension, something. You know what I mean? It's why there have been times where you're like, what are we going to do? We have 3 goalies in training camp. We have too many defensemen. And then lo and behold, one guy goes down, 2 guy goes down. But I like the way this back end is built. I like the way that the forward group is built. And then you're right. You'll go out, you'll maybe add another depth piece. Maybe you go out and get another.
Sounds like they want Brock Nelson. I mean, I've seen Stefan Rosner, Sammy Silber, like all these people report that Brock Nelson is their main target right now.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that, and I'm not doubting.
It's not my opinion. I'm just saying.
I'm not doubting the validity of some of those people, but like, I'm sure a lot of teams want Brock Nelson. You know what I mean? Like, I just. How often do players get traded within their division? I mean, I guess for the Islanders, it doesn't matter all that much, because they're not a playoff team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times those writers, Johnny, they just have a wish list, and then they just start writing about how this is who they're targeting.
I think that's different than like an actual report. Like, it wasn't worded as like, this is who the Capitals should go for, or this is who the Islanders should give Brock Nelson to. Like, it was tweeted as a report of like hearing that there is actual interest from Washington in Brock Nelson. And again, like, coming from the writer's side, I don't think they say things like that unless there is actually validity to it.
Really? I feel like they make shit up every day of the week. Unless
they do. Elliot, they do make shit up sometimes, but it's the wording.
Drager, Jeff, like, unless it comes from one of those guys, I mean, and there's some others, I'm usually kind of like, okay, maybe.
So my Vakanainen and a pick for Trouba, you wouldn't have believed?
Well, you got that directly from a source, a friend of yours who works.
What credibility do I have?
One of the organizations, but you don't, because you had some other big swings and misses in the previous week. So, your credibility is not super high, but we'll see what happens. Like, I just think a lot of teams are going to want Brock Nelson, and I think that, I think the Washington Capitals deserve to be talked about as a true Stanley Cup contender. I do.
You know what I found myself too? I have watched almost every post-game Spencer Carberry clip that the Capitals post. And that room, again, like, this is social media. Like, I'm not in that room, but it just seems like he is so good with his players and they love that guy. Like, in every clip that I see, that room just like is having so much fun with their post-game stuff. I think last night there was a comment about the nachos and everything. But it just seems like one cohesive unit in there. And again, I'm not in that room. They haven't really been at the Garden yet this year. I don't think they've played at MSG this year, so I haven't been around them. But man, like, what a group it seems like that they have.
Well, I think,
and J-Rock, by the way, I've seen a couple of your comments today, and you're on fire. I'm cracking up at you.
I think with Spencer Carberry, I think what took time was that when you first meet Carbs, it almost can come off as a little cheesy in the beginning, and then you quickly realize that it's all just passion. He's just
a good point.
The way that it burns within him is, and even I think Dylan Strome came on our show this summer and talked about that. Like, I think he talked about the adjustment period. And maybe it wasn't on our show. Maybe that was just conversation that him and I had. But
your boys.
I think I'm trying to remember. But I do think that that's part of it with Spencer Carberry. Like, then you're like, oh wait, like, this is just how this guy's wired. His optimism, his energy, his will to want to win, and he's one of these guys that truly believes that you have to get better every day. Remember how I've talked about on this show, like everybody says that, but then how many guys actually like live by that motto?
Not me.
It's a small percentage. I think Carbs is one of those guys. So I think that I think that's why there was a little bit of a getting used to period for him as this, he took over an NHL team for the first time. It just clicks right away for some guys. Like, look at Ryan Warsofsky. I mean, again, I know the result last night was disastrous for the San Jose Sharks, but everything surrounding him, like, put it to you this way, you're not going to hear rumblings of potentially Ryan Warsofsky losing his job this year, even though they're going to finish, well down the bottom and you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to hear that. These players are super bought in. He's got the players in lockstep in San Jose. Like, he has the it factor that some coaches have. So it'll be really interesting to see if the Caps can make a big run this year. Jeremiah, I see your question about Tony D. I did actually catch up with him yesterday a little bit, and I do think that he is waiting and looking for an opportunity back here, whether it will come, whether it won't come. I really have no idea. I talked to him a little bit about his time in Russia, and I could just tell you he's really happy to be back stateside. I think he appreciated the experience of being over there, but I think, like a lot of players, it's a real struggle for guys who have spent most of their career here. All of their career here to go over there and have to just, live in a completely different culture, completely different lifestyle. Obviously there's things going on over there too, which make it a little more uncomfortable, especially for an American guy living over in Russia at this moment. So we'll see what happens with Tony. I do think his agents have had, teams reach out and kick the tires a little bit, see what he would be interested in or what he would be willing to do. And I straight up asked him the question, would you go play in the American League? Would you go down, play in the American League, and sort of prove that, like, you're bought into being, back here playing? And his response to me about that was, look, I'm going to look at any and every situation and decide if it's the right one for me. So, that's pretty much the update that I have on him in talking to him. But he is back home in the Philly area, and him and his agents are just kind of, seeing what's out and what's available for him right now.
All right. That's good to hear, I guess. Right. He's doing okay though. Like, personally and mentally, everything's good.
Yeah, listen, all players have family situations with, grandparents and parents and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into the details of what his, is going on with his family, but look, as you get older and you get into your 30s and, your grandparents get older and your parents get older, health things do come up, I mean, that's part of it. So, I think that was a huge reason why he needed to get back here to the United States and be back in this area to be close and to be near his family. So, and I see your comment, Jean-Luc, and I don't think it has anything to do with not having opportunities to play in Europe. I think he could have any opportunity to play anywhere in Europe. I think it was a matter of wanting to be back here and be near his family. So it's really difficult living over there. It is, with the time change and everything like that. It's very difficult. So that's what we got to say about that. At some point, I'm sure Tony will come back on our show and talk with us. And you can hear some stuff directly from him. But moving on and around the league, Johnny, the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, Lane Hutson, more points last night.
He's sixth in points amongst defensemen.
Yeah, sixth. Above who? Read some of the guys that he's above.
He's behind Josh Morrissey. He is okay. Here's the list of points amongst defensemen this year in the NHL. Cale Makar is 1. Zach Werenski and Quinn Hughes tied for 2. Shea Theodore, I guess, would be 3. Josh Morrissey 4, Lane Hutson 5, although it's listed as like 6. And then Hedman, Fox, Bouchard, Yossi, Dahlin, Carlson. Like Hudson's above those guys. That's insane. On a Montreal Canadiens team that is in the playoffs right now, but they struggled to start the year. I mean, this team in the last 10 games, what are they? I just had it pulled up. Montreal is 10-3-1 in their last 14, scoring 3.36 goals a game, allowing 2.71. Their power play is only at 16.2%. But Lane Hutson, man, like Colby, you've been high on the Celebrini as the end-all be-all rookie of the year. Like, are you going to change your mind?
Yeah,
If
I mean,
Montreal gets in
listen,
the playoffs?
right now, it's a coin flip between those two. And obviously Mitchkov is in the conversation. I just think he's third on that list. But I mean, I think if you asked to vote right now, like I think you'd see the ballots really split between Hutson and Celebrini. I'd probably have to go with Lane Hutson the way that he's playing. I mean, Celebrini did play well yesterday, goal and an assist, but to truly appreciate the way Macklin plays, like you have to watch because of what he does everywhere else. And I think that's the biggest thing that everybody continuously talks about when you're talking about these rookies. Also, I'm laughing at Zach Anderson's comment. Colby just casually saying, maybe it was when Stromer and I were talking.
Yeah.
Ovi was there, Wilson was there, Gretzky was there, and the ashes of Gordie Howe. Zach, I will tell you this. Gordie Howe's grandson, Travis Howe, used to be the hockey director at the skate zone at Voorhees. Obviously grew up in the area because of his father, Mark. He was one of my coaches, his name Travis Howe, when I was a kid. And he took me one summer to Michigan, to like Bloomfield Hills, I believe is where we were, for the Gordie Howe hockey camps that were going on out in Michigan at the time. We actually stayed at Gordie's house in Michigan. He was in his 70s at the time, like mid 70s. And we went and hit golf balls, at a driving range. And the craziest things to me were like Gordie Howe's elbows literally came down to like here. They were just so full of like calcium and God knows what else. I mean, these things were ridiculous. And at 75 or 6 years old, he could still hit a golf ball 300 yards and had the sense of humor of a 16-year-old hockey player in a 16 or junior locker room. I mean, the guy was an absolute riot. So funny to see you throw Gordie's name in there. And like, I just had such a fortunate opportunity to spend some time with him when I was a kid because I played for his grandson. So
yeah, that's pretty sick.
Kind of funny to see that and see him write that into the chat.
Zach goes, "Oh shit, that's unreal."
It was a great experience. I was probably too young to truly appreciate it. Like I was probably 13 years old at the time, maybe 14. So too young to appreciate it.
Eric Engels just answered me and said he can hop on after Pat as well. So I'm just going to message him quick. If you want to bring Pat in.
Okay. Yeah. So we do have our weekly appearance by Pat Maroon teed up for you guys today. And as always, we look forward to having Pat join us every week. And sometimes not just Pat that joins us. We get other members of the Maroon crew, which I think the chat always looks forward to Little Rig appearances. But let's start with you, Pat. What's going on in your world? How you feeling, bud?
Good, man. Good morning. Just trying to figure out what's going on with me right now. Obviously, I didn't play last game, but it's all good. It's just there's some positives right now. Just trying to get back. Just have this nagging little thing going on right now, but nothing to be too concerned about right now. But I think, that was a big win for us the other night. Obviously, a tough loss to Carolina, up 2-0. But it seems like we have more structure. We have more, things that we can look forward to. Going to the games, and guys are starting to figure it out, and guys are starting to play a little more crispier and a little more harder, and we're getting more results. Obviously, not the results we want, but I think on the D side of it, and on the offensive side too. So it's been good to see, but obviously Carolina's a tough loss. I thought we had that one up 2-0 again. Seems like our second periods have been not the best. So
yeah, Pat, let me ask you this, and I'm not so much looking to focus on your own injury, but like I was kind of thinking of this, you know, especially now that I'm coaching at the junior level and we've got guys that are dealing with injuries all the time, and I started thinking about like, you know, my own experience or whatever with injuries and how that's evolved in the NHL, and like I remember in the early days of my pro career, whether it be up or down. So let's go back to like 2010, 2011, like that time, right? 15 years or so. The question is how has it evolved? Because I remember back then when you got injured, they almost wanted to make you feel bad about being injured the way that you were kind of treated. And I don't mean like they were mean to you in a sense, but like you had to come into and this wasn't every coach, but some coaches, like I had some old school guys with Bruce Cassidy. You know, Claude Julien was the guy in Boston. Those guys are a little more old school, especially then. You weren't even really allowed to be around the team when you were injured in my experiences. Like if team practice was at 10 a.m., you had to be in at like 6 a.m. for treatment, for workout, whatever. They basically wanted you done before the rest of the guys came in. And I don't know if you ever dealt with that personally or you ever saw that early in your career when you were playing. So you can tell me, you know, no, that's crazy. You know, that's only an experience you had, or maybe you agree or whatever, but how it's evolved today. Because it doesn't feel like for friends of mine, at least that have dealt with injuries in the NHL in the recent time, it doesn't feel like that's maybe the motto anymore or the way it's kind of handled and treated.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that was exactly how it was back then. You felt bad for being injured and you wanted to rush back, and then you re-injured yourself, and then you're back to square one. You know, that's just an old school mentality, right? And you know, these guys back then played through so many injuries, and the coaches that played and they've known the game that they expect it, right? They expect you to be back as soon as possible, even if you're feeling 50%. But now it's nice because, like you said, it's changed a lot over the years for guys, because once they feel nagging pain or they're injured, you know, they want to get them back 100% to make sure, because most likely they're there long term, right? And they want the best out of those guys. They don't want them at 50%. They want them at 100%. And I think that's the most important thing for guys now in injuries. And you got to take your time, because I think most importantly, it's the person. It's not the hockey, right? It's the person, right? You want to take care of the person first, and then make sure he's good to go to play the game of hockey, right? I think long term is the most important thing. I can look at it like for myself and my career. Obviously, I rushed back through a ton of injuries, and obviously I shouldn't have, but now I look at it a little bit differently. You know, I'm a human being. I have kids. Like, I want to be healthy. You know, this game doesn't last forever. I think you got to look at the person now instead of just the athlete, and trying to get them back on the ice. And I think that's the most important thing for me. You know, we're human beings too, just as everyone else, right? Like,
Yeah.
when just like my dad goes getting surgery, like he has to go rehab, right? And he has to rehab for the whole 12 weeks. Like sometimes we rehab for only the 7 weeks, and we're back out there, right? So I think we got to care for the human first, and then, you know, the hockey player on that side of it. But I think you're completely right on that, Colby.
So it's better. So you do feel like there's been a major involvement in the way that they look at injured players. I mean, that's great to hear.
And I think there's pushback too from players too. There's more pushback from players. There's more like, hey, listen, I know it's the 12th week, and I know it's been 12 weeks, but I'm not ready yet. I'll give you the time when I'm ready. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think back then we didn't have a little more pushback. It was an old school way. You talk back, it's like you're a bad human being, right? And I'm not saying that's talking back. I'm saying
speaking up for yourself.
Speaking up for yourself. You know, like some guys have more balls, I guess, now than they ever have before than speaking up like with an injury and stuff. And I think that's good. I think you need that. It's your body, right? It's how you feel. Like you can't tell me how I'm feeling, and I think that's the biggest thing, like with everything, with injuries and stuff. And it's been an amazing job now. I think they've done a really good job of understanding the player and taking their time with everything.
Pat, let me ask you this question from the chat. Sorry, Johnny.
Yeah,
Zach Anderson. Zach Anderson. Well, you did send a dumb text to the group text.
Yeah,
yesterday.
You did send a dumb text.
This is what you get.
That's putting me in timeout for the first time.
It's a great question by Zach Anderson, who's with us quite often here. And I'm pretty sure Zach's a Flyers fan here, so probably remembers you from early in your career. But is the lack of disclosure of injuries going to change? He said, I think it may help humanize injury situations for players if people had more of an idea what was going on. And I know that's a hard question. Like, you're not the executive director or the commissioner. But I'm I think that's an interesting question, and I think it's definitely one worth asking you.
Yeah, I think it should change, maybe for the player and maybe for just the league itself. Because I think for now it's just like what is it now? It's just
upper
like
body,
lower body.
Yeah. Body. I think personally it should change. Maybe not in the playoffs, because then you're
playoffs, everyone's broken, so
you're disclosing something and guys might attack that. Guys are going to try every way to win possible, right? So I think for that way, I think playoffs maybe not. But again, I mean, they're all athletic trainers. They all see the reports. They can see what injuries happen throughout the year and what happened. So they can kind of tell you like what he heard this year. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it will change. I think it should change. But again, does it really matter though? If the player comes out or the team comes out and says, yeah, he broke his leg or separated his shoulder, ACL, like the football players do that, right? I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think it really matters. I think they should do it. But again, like for playoff wise, if someone gets hurt, I don't think they should announce it, because then the player's kind of vulnerable in that situation. If he does return, they know what hurt him, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's more on the fan, like the fans too. I feel like are so hard on players sometimes, and they have no idea like what a player is playing through. I think back to last year's playoffs. Obviously, the New York bias is coming out here, but like fans were so hard on Jacob Trouba. He was playing through the playoffs with a broken foot. And no one knows that, right? Like they just say lower body injury that he was dealing with.
I mean, I think the fans are still going to be mad either way.
Of course, but at least they have a little bit
more.
They're
going to nitpick everything they can.
Yeah.
Right? Or I mean, I don't know. Like I just feel like if you're playing through a broken hand or a broken foot, there's fans are going to be like, well, why is he playing?
Yeah.
He's playing like shit anyways. So like, there's no in between like with fan bases and everything. So like they're going to find a reason to bitch. And okay, he's playing bad, but he's playing through a broken foot. You'd rather have a guy that's veteran experience, it's been around the league for a long time, that's been in the playoffs, been to the conference finals, has a broken foot. You'd rather have that guy than a guy that has zero experience that can maybe cost you a game. I mean, playing bad in what way? You know what I mean? So, like, I feel like there can be a fine line between that, and there can be an argument. I mean, we can sit here all day and argue about it, but I think the fans are going to bitch either way about.
No, it's a good point.
Scenarios.
It's a good point. It is like you said. They'll say, "Well, why is he playing anyway?" Like that's actually true. Yeah, that's very true. And speaking of fans bitching, and speaking of people being human beings, are you supporting Connor McDavid through this process?
I am supporting Connor.
Did you see that statement by the Oilers last night? I mean, come on. Like, that is insane.
What did the Oilers say?
They came out with a statement. I'll read it for people that are audio only. The Edmonton Oilers have released the following statement regarding a 3-game suspension of team captain Connor McDavid. The Oilers organization is disappointed, and we share in our fans' frustration over the 3-game suspension of our captain Connor McDavid. We support him through this process, and the organization and our fans look forward to having him back in the lineup for Seattle next week. As if he's like,
I mean, that's a bit aggressive, but I think I like what Corey Perry said.
Yeah.
I really like what Corey Perry said. I was like, you got to treat your superstars like Patrick Mahomes and LeBron James. And Connor McDavid's up there with that crew. And listen, Garland was basically tackling him like he was a football player. He was shoving his head in the ground. Like, eventually Connor's going to snap back. Yeah. And he did. I think Myers was probably worse than his, no?
Oh, yeah. We said the same thing. Yeah.
So to us, that felt premeditated, where the McDavid one
Myers
just
is
felt
6'9" on skates. Like,
yeah.
He's going directly at his head.
Let me ask you a question, because you're buddies with McDavid, right? You guys are friends, right, Pat?
Yeah.
So when you see something like that happen, even though you're not teammates with Connor anymore, will you remember that next time you're playing it in Vancouver against a guy like Garland? Is that something that will sit in the back of your mind, or different jerseys? So you're moving on from it.
Different jersey. Like, okay. I've when I was in Tampa, like we were in a scrum and I just absolutely buried Connor. I just threw him to the ground. But
McDavid
again, like, you're just trying to get the top guys off their game. And I think the most important thing for me there is how long it went on for. Like, no one went in there, and eventually it doesn't matter who you are in that time and place, like, someone's gonna snap.
Yeah, for
sure. Like, I don't care who you are. Like, that guy was just like absolutely
blackout, wires crossed, whatever.
Wires crossed, like,
yeah.
I don't think there wasn't intent to hurt, but there was intent to show him that keep doing that. I'm gonna do it. Like, he'll never do that again, or maybe he will. I don't know. Like, if they face each other in the playoffs, who knows? Like,
Connor Garland probably will.
Yeah, he probably will. He's a little rat out there.
To argue with you, Pat, on the flip side, I heard Zach Phillips say this yesterday on the Sheet. He does the show with Jeff Merrick. Like, do you really want the NHL to turn into the NBA and NFL, where anytime Mahomes is touched or anytime LeBron is touched, a foul or a whistle comes out? Like, a part of hockey is fighting through that stuff. Like, I don't think anyone wants, Connor McDavid to draw a penalty every time he's touched, right? Like, that's
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in scenarios like that. Like, give the guy a break. Like, what does he want? Like, what do you guys want him to do there in that scenario? Like, I just don't understand that part of the game. Like, we all know he's going to get matched up against the top players. You're going to get matched up against the guy that's an annoying guy on the team. Like, he's going to follow him around the ice and try to get him off his game. I think the most important thing is just after every whistle, you can't just be in his face. Like, that's annoying. I mean, you got to let him breathe a little bit. You got to hold, like, the other player accountable. Like, because if that's me every time, I'm going to the box. I don't care. If that was me, that would have been a double minor. There's a difference. There's a difference in that. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's different situations, different players, I feel like, have a little bit more leeway than most, right?
Do you have to kiss the ref's ass a little bit more?
I don't think he's crying about it. Like, McDavid's not like that. Like, he'll fight through anything. Like, I just think that was a little more aggressive, like, than most. Like, again, though, but, like, if you want to protect him, you want to protect him. But listen, he did what he had to do, and he did it. I mean, that sucks for him. I mean, unfortunately, he got the consequences on that side of it. He got a 3-game suspension, but like Ovi said yesterday, it's better for them. He's not in the line.
Yeah, I love
that.
It sounds like we have a pretty good video that we can roll in here of this little altercation between you and McDavid. Oh, baby. Little foot behind the foot. What'd you say to him, Pat?
He looks like you're laughing right away.
I didn't say much. I don't know why I was out there with him, but against him.
Did you get 2 for that or no?
Yeah, I got a poly for that.
You did give 2. All right.
I mean, that's a clear stupid.
Because the whistle blew after that. Something happened, and then I just went after him. We were down a lot, so I was trying to spark the team.
I want to follow up with what Johnny asked you because he didn't fully get through it, and I am interested to hear what is your relationship like with the refs, Pat? Like, because you are a guy who, you're a guy who stirs it up, and you're a guy who not only stirs it up, but you'll calm things down as well because you'll shed your gloves and you'll answer the bell pretty frequently. So curiously, like on a day-to-day basis, what is that relationship like between you and the officials in the National League?
I feel like I have a good relationship with a lot of the refs. I've been around the league for a long time, but they tend to know that I do have my wires crossed sometimes. My wires do cross, and I start to yell and start to say some foul language. But I think I feel like we do have a good relationship, but they know, like, I'm like, it depends on the situation. It could be like 2 seconds from doing something stupid, or you know what I mean? Like, it could be like a scenario like McDavid's where like they probably want to control that more than what was Connor Garland, right? If that was me, they probably want to get in there right away, right? There's a different, I don't know, it's different, but I feel like I have a pretty good relationship. They always say hi to me, so I feel like that's a good start.
Yeah.
When most
hi, Pat. No bullshit tonight. We're watching.
Exactly.
You.
Yeah. But I do want to ask about, because you just like you mentioned that Connor Garland might be a bit of a rat, but like you've also been teammates with other guys who are considered that like rat label, like Corey Perry, like Brad Marchand, like you've played on teams with these guys. Like, can you talk about how they're perceived by, maybe fans and what they're actually like, as teammates? Because, we all look at them and we don't know them personally. And we're, it's easy for us to call them rats, but like, you got to respect what they do every night. They take the opponent out of the game and everyone's focused on them because of the shit that they do. Right.
Yeah. I mean, listen, they're really good at what they do at their job. That's the most important thing. I mean, the problem is they do it every single night, and it's annoying as hell. Like, they're engaged and
even as a teammate.
No, I'm talking about on the ice, but off the ice, they're completely different. Just good human beings, funny, good guys you want to hang out with. Like, those are the guys you want to be with, right? I feel like those are the guys you are friends with. Like, the guys that hate each other, like on different teams, become really close, right? I feel like that's always been a thing.
Besides you, Montreal.
Yeah, I never play with them though.
But like, you ever get one of those guys, Pat, and you end up at a wedding? Because like, I've been at a wedding or two where there has been like on ice beef that like you'd think would just be like, oh, whatever, like we're at a wedding, nobody's gonna like. But I could tell you, and I'm not going to go into the names, but like at Shaddy's wedding, there was some discomfort between, a couple of guys, like something that kind of was on the ice that ended up at the wedding too. Like, you ever get into a situation like that?
No, I haven't. No, never. But I would love to be a fly on the wall when that happens. But yeah, I mean, like, Marchand and Pears are great guys, great humans, like super laid back, chill, good leaders, very funny. But when they put their skates on, a switch hits them and they're ready to rock, and they just get back to their naggy bullshit, whatever they do, chirping. They're like, Perry's got some hilarious. When I play with Perry's, like, he was filling water bottles, like on TV timeouts. Jeff Carter's gloves were just sitting there. He's filling his gloves up with water. Like, it's just like
an asshole move.
Like, the shit that he used to do is just like, he took Alex Semen's stick when he was changing. He was coming on the ice. Pears was changing. He took his stick and brought it to the bench. Like, he does some ridiculous stuff that, like, even Marshy's the same way. Like, they just do some funny stuff. You're like, God, how did you even think of that? Like, but again, that's why they've been in the league for a long time. They've won. They've been successful.
Do you ever, as a teammate though, like with those guys, say like, dude, that's too much? Like what do you?
No, because I love it. I would love to
Yeah.
do that too.
Yeah.
I think I would be on the same page if I knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. That's hilarious. I have one off-topic question for you. This is from someone that we all know. What's your favorite color pepper? Apparently, that's a thing.
My favorite what?
One of
Color
your former
pepper.
equipment managers texted
Okay, well,
us
you're giving it away.
and asked Jonny to ask you this question.
My favorite pepper?
Your favorite color pepper. Yeah, I don't know what the inside joke is really, but
they're going to this thing. I said they all taste the same.
I'm not really a
I don't
pepper
have
guy,
a
so I don't
favorite.
have an argument. Like I don't know.
Are you talking about you're talking about the green one, yellow one, red one.
Pepper. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't like me because I said they all taste the same.
Is that
So
like a big argument?
I don't have a favorite one.
Colby, do you like peppers? I don't even like peppers, so I don't know.
I don't.
Thanks for this question, Cheese.
Yeah, I mean, this is a typical burger fail, is what I would say. Typical burger fail.
We had this argument about peppers, and we closed our eyes because I said they all taste the same, and then people figured out the yellow, red, and green. But I'm like, okay, really though? You knew that?
Yeah, they all the sweet peppers kind of taste the same to me. That
I
so
agree.
Everybody knows, there's an equipment manager for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Jason Berger, who I spend time with the Bruins. Pat was with in Tampa, and then Jonny, you did the Maccabee games with him.
Yeah.
Maccabee games with him. So you always can see him on the bench whenever Tampa's got a TV game. You can't miss him with his hair. He's got big, long, wavy, curly kind of hair, and he's got his glasses on. So you can't miss him on the bench. So next time you're watching a Tampa game, you'll know it. Pat, look, we appreciate all your time today, and we do appreciate the fact that you were willing to talk about some of that personal injury stuff. Obviously, Jonny looks like he has one more that he wants to ask you. So I'll just say to you again, the fact that you're willing to come on here every week and talk about this stuff personally is always greatly appreciated, and the insights are great. So look, we truly hope whatever's going on, you'll be able to sort it out and get to the bottom of it one way or another, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again next week. So I'll pass it over to Jonny.
Yeah.
Whatever question he's going to ask you here to wrap the segment, and then we'll keep in touch here over the next couple of days. All right, bud.
Thanks, Colby.
And J-Rock goes, Jonny has one more question. I'm shook. Well, this is more about, because we're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens now in the next couple minutes with Eric Engels, but you and I were talking about it, and you actually fought him like a month ago. What's the code between Reeves and Jack-Eye right now? And I know you saw like the comments that were made just from someone who's like in that, what did you make of that whole thing between those two?
Listen, it's a 3-0 game, Montreal, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he needs a fight. They're up 3-0. I think they don't want to obviously change the momentum. But again, like Reeves said, I think in his comments, it didn't really matter. They ended up winning 7-3 anyways. But listen, I don't know. Like Reeves also got hit by him. Jack-Eye threw a big hit on him. But again, like I don't know the scenario, but I do know when it's like momentum shift, or it's a 2-1 game or a 3-1 game or a 3-0 game, like listen, I'm not fighting you now. Like I don't want this momentum shift to you guys, and then you guys will get it if you guys score and make it 3-1, 3-2. So I think depends on the situation of what's going on. And listen, I guess they've been having beef for a long time. They've never really they fought, right? Or a short fought?
I feel like they have once. But I know it's a thing that he like won't fight him though. Apparently.
Oh, really?
That's just what like the stuff I see on Twitter. I don't know personally. I don't talk to either. I think
Reeves also said in the media he's looking for a fight too. He hasn't had one this year. It's like the first time in a long time he hasn't had one. So, listen, Ryan Reeves is the toughest guy. He's the guy. He's the man on the ice. Like he's the guy you have to beat. Like that's the goats of
the heavyweight champ
guys right now, heavyweight champs. Like I just think you have to understand that, and that maybe Jack Guy wants to pick his spots, and I think when he's ready, he'll fight him. I don't think he's scared of him by any means. Like he's a tough guy. Like I mean, he got Rempe pretty good the other night. You know, like
yeah.
I mean, he's just a tough customer. He knows what he's doing, but
are you giving him a go there at 3-0? Are you giving him that at 3-0?
No, I'm not giving him that. No chance.
Right, because why give his team the opportunity to feed off that, the juice from the fight, right?
Yeah, I'm not giving him that fight. No chance. Not at 3-0, especially in the second period. Like, there's no point. If you wanted to fight, we should have fought at 0-0. I think that's that's the thing I always say. But again, as guys like us and Reeves and those guys, they're trying to build a spark and get their team with with a little bit of momentum and maybe a little shift, get guys more engaged, get guys standing up on the bench and getting excitement in the game again. So I think it's, it's hard, man. It's hard for Reeves. I guarantee it's hard for him every single night. He can't find a dance partner, which sucks for him, like I'm not saying, his job is just to fight, but I'm saying that's his energy. He's on the forecheck. He hits big hits, he gets to the net, like he drops his gloves when he needs to. So I'm sure it's a little bit frustrating for him.
Did you give him the fight or did he give you one when you guys went at it?
I ran the goalie.
Oh.
Well,
that'll do it.
I'll tell you this, Pat. I've never felt more invincible being out at night than when it's been with Ryan Reeves. So I concur what you said. He's a heavyweight and he's an awesome guy. I mean, one of the most fun human beings away from it all. So I know that was a long 2-parter there for you, Pat. So we're going to let you go spend some time with the family. And we'll catch up with you next week when there's more to talk about, and hopefully we'll see you back out on the ice here soon. All right, pal?
Absolutely, fellas. Great seeing you guys. Have a good morning.
Pat. Appreciate it. Be good. Awesome stuff. And now let's just get right to our next guest. But before we bring him on, just want to do a quick word from our sponsor, Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care made in Italy. Since 1948, Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. And Eric, last time you were on here, I think it was right after Line A's first game, and we were unsure if Montreal was going to make a run and get to the playoffs.
No, we were not unsure. We were counting them out for dead. Let's not pretend here like we saw what was coming. Okay,
what's happened?
I think we were all pretty sure they weren't going to, but they just come together. Like there was kind of a slow build before it happened, but when Laine came back, it kind of placed everybody in the right chair, and he started firing in power play goals per game. That helps a lot. You get an extra goal, you prevent one from getting into your net. You start winning some games, and the Canadiens on the other side of it obviously have done a much better job defensively. So yeah, it's been a very impressive run. This team was not built to have 1 or 2 or 3 guys carry it. You need an entire team putting in the effort, and that's what they've gotten, and it's led to results that have them in a playoff spot this morning.
Do you think it's sustainable? Do you worry at all that maybe the peak is a little too early and it's happening, during a time where you look around and there's not a ton of consistency happening, especially in the Eastern Conference, like other than maybe Washington, which just seems to have been consistent for the entire season. But, the Leafs lose 3 in a row, and Carolina's, been up and down, even though, yes, they've won 3 in a row. So they've been a little bit better lately. Ottawa went on a great little run of 6 wins in a row, and then they went on a 5-1 skid. So are you confident that this is sustainable in Montreal?
Well, I think it's a really good question in terms of the time of year, right? Like you want to be peaking right before the playoffs if you're going to be a team that's going to do any type of damage. And it's a thought that's popped into my head. So I like the question. We'll find out just how much energy the Canadiens have in the reserve tank to follow through on what they've been doing over the last 7 weeks. But on the other side of it, like what is sustainable is their style of play. This is not a team. This is a team that started off the season as the second youngest team in the league. Now, Laine back in the lineup, and Carrier came over from Nashville, and he's had a huge impact. They have just found a maturity, and I think their coach is a huge factor in it. And if you talked about Washington's consistency, if Montreal makes the playoffs, I think the Jack Adams race between Spencer Carberry and St. Louis might be a lot tighter than a lot of people would assume. And I don't want to disrespect people like Ryan Huska, who's done an incredible job in Calgary, but the Canadiens were dead in the water last time we spoke, and here they are. And it's the results that they've generated in winning. I think it's 16 of their last 21 or something like that.
13 and 17. I saw Jeremiah in our chat say.
Yeah. 13 out of 17. You can stretch it back since November 11th or so. I think they have the fourth best win percentage in the NHL. It's not a small sample. And if you go through those results, outside of
third best.
Okay, so there you go. Outside of the game against Tampa last night, where they were soundly outplayed by the Lightning, they have outplayed their opposition in almost virtually every game, including the one where they lost 7-3 to the Leafs on Saturday. Like they were to get up 3-0, and you look through the first half of that game, and even going towards the end of the second period of that game, they had played as well through that portion of the game as they had at any other point over this run that they've had. So is it sustainable? When you have an identity and a system of play that you stick to, it becomes sustainable, and health is the ultimate determinant. And you look at the two goaltenders and what they've done, you can find some sustainability. So we'll find out from here to the end, but there's a lot of signs that would suggest that, yes, it is.
Well, the goaltending is a good point too. I just wanted to, Cole, do you have a follow-up that you want to say?
No, go ahead. You're good. Go ahead.
So Jacob Vandersar in our chat just said Montreal should not make any big moves at the deadline. This isn't a year to go all in. And I'm looking at the goalie situation right now in Dobis, who's 23 years old. And Colby and I are both familiar with a great prospect that Montreal has in goal, and Jacob Fowler at Boston College. Like, is he a piece now that you maybe consider moving if your goaltending,
No way.
looks pretty solid?
No,
I mean, again, like I'm just asking about making the playoffs. If you're thinking about making a move, like if the goaltending situation looks sound, does Fowler then become, an option?
I think if the Canadiens are healthy, we're going to see very little movement around them between now and the deadline. And I think there's some people that assume they'd sell off unrestricted free agents, or at least one or two of them out of the four that they have. I think there's people that would assume that they would take prospects or picks and try to upgrade what they have because something special appears to be brewing. I could see Kent Hughes sitting on his hands. Like, I don't see a reason to mess with the chemistry of the team. I don't see a reason to get deluded into thinking that I'm not saying that you can't get in and have a chance of doing something special.
Well, they're not a real contender.
But they're not, they're not, if you pick out 4 or 5 teams that you think have the best chance of winning the Stanley Cup, I'm pretty sure the Canadiens are not going to be among them. So I think the guys here that manage the team are level-headed enough to stay away from stuff like that. As far as Jacob Fowler is concerned, I mean, you're talking about arguably, and I don't know how many people would even argue against it.
Yeah, he's nasty.
The consensus best goaltender outside of the NHL.
Yeah, him and Trey Augustine are probably, depending on how you look at it. I'm more of a Fowler. I've just seen Fowler play so well so many times.
We were saying the same things about Devin Levi.
But Devin Levi is 5'10". Like, there's a difference. Like,
I still think Devin Levi will be pretty good. It's Sam Montembeault is a perfect example of how long it takes to hit in the NHL. When he came to the Canadiens at 25 years old, or 24, he looked like a guy that didn't belong in this league and was never going to. And, now he's on Team Canada's roster, and he absolutely goalied the Lightning last night. And I think it's really dangerous to judge prospects too early. Like Caden Primo, when he came to Montreal, had 2 years at Northeastern that were as impressive as what Jacob Fowler has done at Boston College. it takes time at this position for some guys. Shesterkin is like the outlier. Ottinger, an outlier. There's Sorokin is an outlier. There, for every one of those, there's like 30 others that it takes them until they're 25 before they really
Tuukka spent 3 years in Providence. I mean, you got to be patient with goalies. I'm not sure if Buffalo overplayed their hand and have done damage to his development. I'd venture to say yes.
You'd say the same of Primo in Montreal too. Like he had to play against a team that really didn't give him a chance to win a lot of nights, and now he's down. He went back down at a point where his confidence was at its lowest, and he's crushing it in the American League. So it's early to give up on guys even when they hit 25, 26. Yeah. So
and when you have a Jacob Fowler,
just to clarify, I wasn't saying they should. I was just
asking. No, I understand the thing.
Yeah.
I like the pot stirring, Johnny. Way to go.
Dobis has played a few games, and I know he's been phenomenal. Listen, remember what I said? Don't solve a problem today. Don't solve tomorrow's problem today if you don't have to. Mm-hmm. And if you end up with 2 star starting goalies in the NHL in a couple of years, you can deal with that then. But you get a Jacob Fowler, you get a Trey Augustine, you get one of these guys and you let them develop. Maybe it gives Montreal more opportunity to let him continue to bake in the oven because they have a 1-2 punch in Montreal. It's a nice liberty to have.
Listen, it's a complete luxury. I mean, how many teams have one goaltender they can count on and rely on a regular basis? The Canadiens have 3 of them. What was a major position of weakness when Montembeault was claimed off waivers from Florida because Price was on his way out with the injuries and they had nobody to play there. At one point, Andrew Hammond was brought in. Like it's become a position of strength for the Canadiens. Montembeault and Dobis are a 1-2 punch that I'd put up against pretty much any team's goaltending combo in the league. And to have Jacob Fowler waiting in the wings and afforded the time to develop the way you'd want him to develop, considering what he's already done. I can't speak to his technical ability because I haven't watched him enough. I can speak to the reality that all the big games, he seems to win them. Like he just has this winning ability. He's got that intangible quality that scouts love. And there's a great video of Billy Ryan, who's a scout for the Canadiens, pounding the table for the Canadiens to take this kid to draft. If you haven't seen it, you guys should find it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
There's an argument about some of the goaltenders in this draft, and he's just pounding the table like this kid wins. Like
it's like
I saw Billy at Northeastern last year watching Lane Hutson with Kent Hughes. Obviously, Kent Hughes' son played on the team with Lane last year. So Kent was able to use the business credit card to go watch his son play because he was scouting as well, Lane Hutson. How can we spend 30 minutes talking about the Montreal Canadiens without talking about Lane? I mean, I love the story you told us last time you were on here about his just mentality of like, he's not just going to be an NHLer. He wants to be the best player in this league. Watching him lately, Eric, he looks to me to be playing the exact same way he played at the NCAA level, which I did not think he'd be able to do. I thought he'd have to adjust. It's not the case. He's playing like himself at the NHL level. What have you seen in the evolution so far?
Well, actually, it's a good question the way you just framed it in terms of the evolution, because there has been one, and he has adjusted, and he has picked his spots better, and he has taken some of the things out of his game that were features of his game, the head fakes, the bobbing. I'm not saying it's completely gone, but the propensity to try to beat somebody one-on-one, knowing that on the other end of that, it might not necessarily put him in a better spot. I think he's deferring more to his teammates, and to see a player evolve that quickly at that position it's been astounding. Look, I could not just on the offensive side, which everybody gets wowed by, because offensively what he's doing is absolutely ridiculous. He's on pace for the most assists ever by a rookie defenseman in the NHL, by the way. That's crazy. He's on a 9-game point streak, which is, I think if he has one more, if he scores a point in his next game, it's the longest point streak for an NHL defenseman in history. It's the stuff that he does all over the ice. It's the breaking up a play and sweeping a pass in transition all in one motion. He does 15 things a game that make me just go, oh my God. Like there's not enough good things you could say about this player. And it all starts with his drive. Like his desire to make the difference on every single play is unparalleled. And I just think you look at Saturday night, you want to know a lot about a character, about a player. Like Saturday night, he was -5 against the Maple Leafs. And that was relatively representative. Plus minus is usually not necessarily representative of how a player's night goes. Sometimes you get caught on the ice for a couple goals that have nothing to do with you. Sometimes it's an empty netter. That was still the case, but -5 was representative of his performance. He had a really tough game against the Maple Leafs. He got walked by William Nylander. He gave away a puck on a later sequence that put the Canadiens in big trouble on a goal. He comes back against the Rangers, and when I say plus minus isn't representative, he finished the game with 1 assist and was -1. He was probably the best player on the ice.
He was lights out. Yeah,
it was incredible. So, and then by the way, I mean, that game against the Rangers was, I know you watched it, Johnny.
One of the better ones of the year that I've seen. Yeah, it was a great.
That
game.
Was a hell of an exciting game. And I think a big part of it is just the atmosphere that we got at the Bell Center for it. There was a lot of blue shirts in the building, and it was just a ruckus in there. It was awesome.
Yeah, and just one more question about Lane too, because sometimes, I know this from experience, and Colby does, I'm sure, as well. Like when you start to see a little bit of success, you feel more comfortable in the room and become more of yourself personally. I know we talked last time that Lane's a little bit more of a quieter guy, and he might still be a quieter guy, but are you seeing the confidence now, like away from the rink, like the way he acts around the guys? Like, is he, coming into himself a little bit more as just a human being?
I haven't seen anything different from Lane, and I think Lane is just very comfortable being Lane. And look, for how quiet he is in the room, he's not going to suck up a lot of oxygen in that room, and doesn't need to. That's just the way he is. On the ice, like Nick Suzuki told the story of like his first game in the NHL, he's in an offensive zone faceoff, and he's telling guys, like he was literally directing the play. Yeah.
Wow.
So I think, when it comes to he does his talking with his play, but he's not afraid to assert himself, even coming in his first NHL game. And you see it, like you just see it in his actions, right? A guy that believes he can make the difference on every single play that he makes is not going to be shy to speak up and say, "Hey, we should do this, or we should run a reverse," and that's pretty exciting. Like there's a lot to be excited about this player. I can't believe what he's doing. He's on pace for more than 60 assists this year.
61 draft players were drafted ahead of him. And look, I think Cole's going to make a lot of teams regret their decision not to take him either. Yeah. Listen, superstars only know how to be superstars.
You wouldn't have taken Cam York ahead of Cole?
So, superstars only know how to be one way, and they may have to disguise it a little bit at times when they're rookies, but those guys are built different. There's all the best in the world, and then there's that small group of the best in the world. And whether you're talking about, Green Berets or Navy SEALs, like they're just built differently to be in the most elite category of what you do in any stage or walk of life. And that's what Lane Hutson is. Eric, the last question that I have for you, because it is, you brought up Kent Hughes, and I know Kent Hughes is the general manager of this hockey team, and I know Jeff Gorton, you don't hear about him all that much, and I think that's by design. But I think Jeff Gorton has a lot to do with the everyday decisions of this hockey club. But your boots on the ground, your ear is in it way closer than mine. How like, I know there was a different title given to Jeff than we normally see. Like it was like a vice president of, he's not a French speaking guy, and they didn't use the president term, but like, how involved is he with the day-to-day with Kent Hughes? Because I just only ever hear Kent Hughes names, but I do think there's also another guy behind the curtain with a lot of say around there?
I think both of them make decisions in concert, and we're talking about every single decision you could have in management. You know, he's the executive vice president of hockey operations. Hughes is the general manager. Hughes will be the one on the phone with the other GMs. He will be the one executing the decisions. But that, you know, the conversation happens before anything gets executed, and it's between those two guys, and they balance each other out well, right? Like, they have various experience. I think Jeff Molson, you know, at the time when he hired Jeff Gordon and said, we're going to bring in a GM, I think everybody saw it as kind of a circumvention of the need to have a French general manager. And, you know, he said at the time that he made the hire, he's like, this is a job for two people, and you guys might not understand today, but you will understand when we move forward with the people that we're going to have. And I have to give him credit. I thought it was the strongest moment of leadership for Jeff Molson as the owner of the Canadiens, doing what he did and letting go Marc Bergevin after 10 years and bringing in Jeff Gordon, a guy who was not only being brought in to rebuild the team on the ice, but build up the organization after experience in New York and Boston. You know, the Canadiens had, I wrote a couple of big pieces on the modernization of the Montreal Canadiens and what they needed to do. They're two pieces that I'm probably most proud of in my career, and they were.
Where can we find those, by the way?
They're at sportsnet.ca. If you search the modernization of the Montreal Canadiens, they're exclusive interviews with Gordon, and it really kind of popped the lid on what he needed to do to rebuild the organization, beef up development, scouting, but also team services. A guy that he brought over with Alex Case from the New York Rangers, who's done a phenomenal job with them, and just. They were kind of coasting on their reputation. COVID was a stress test that they failed, and it just illuminated a lot of the issues that, you know, if you want to be constantly referred to as the New York Yankees of hockey, you need to live up to that reputation. And I think the change that has happened under these two guys has been enormous. Gordon has a lot to do with rebuilding the organization, but he has also had a lot to do with rebuilding the team and the balance that those guys bring to each other with their varied experience, with Gordon being with the Rangers and Bruins and having worked from every position of PR to GM, and Kent coming in with over 20 years of experience as a high-powered agent in the game. These guys, you know, haven't made a lot of mistakes so far. I mean, maybe there's some coming, but I can't point to one or two even that I would say has slowed down their plan. So it's pretty impressive to see. And look, in an era where so many teams have tried to rebuild and get it done right, it's hard to look at I think we would have looked at the Canadiens last time we were on and maybe had some questions as to whether or not they were taking a step back. But it seems as though the progress has been a lot more linear than we've seen in the other markets. And I think it's a testament to those two guys, but also to Martin St. Louis and the culture he's established with the Canadiens and the players, some of the veteran guys who usually in those situations have a hard time finding the motivation to play the way they want to. You look at Armia, Evans, Gallagher, Anderson, Dvorak, Savard, like they have helped carry the culture that the Canadiens want to have. And I think it all starts from the top.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And you mentioned names like Matheson, though, and Savard. Those are two names that are like being talked about to get traded. Now,
I didn't mean to leave Matheson out, actually. Sorry.
No, I think you said Matheson, I think, didn't you?
No, he was the one I didn't mention, but good for you for mentioning him too, because for people who think that he's going to get traded, it's
I was going to say they're going to hold on to those guys maybe now, right? Like, is that what it seems like? And you know, my last question for you, Eric, which we appreciate your time again this morning. I know it was last minute. I literally texted you at like 8:55, so really appreciate you hopping on. But is the only concern, because I know we kind of talked about it when you first hopped on, is that Four Nations might come around and just ruin all the momentum that they've built. Is that the only thing that is a concern with this group right now? Is the timing of all this happening, which is, you know, what you kind of alluded to before?
Yeah, like I think Colby hit it too. Like you can't. You want to be peaking as you get closer to the playoffs, right? Not in the middle of the season. You worry that there will be a downtrend. And of course, if the Canadiens in their 9 games between now and the Four Nations continue on the same run they've been on, you worry that some of that momentum is, you know, dies. But I think everybody will welcome the rest. You know, Yoel Armia and Patrick Laine are going to that tournament. Sam Montembeault is going to that tournament. We'll see about Suzuki and Caulfield as you hope the Canadian and American rosters remain healthy. But I think they would be replacement players if, for whatever reason, somebody went down at their positions. The rest will be beneficial for most of these guys. Their schedule has been absolutely insane. They just went through a 16-game stretch before the Rangers game, or a 15-game stretch before the Rangers game, where they had to travel for every game they played.
Oh, wow.
And they went through all the time zones that NHL teams play in, and a bunch of back-to-backs, 3 games in 4 nights. They haven't had – today will be their first practice since last Monday. They haven't held a full – they've held 2 morning skates in their last, 17 games. It's been –
That's a lot, yeah.
Look, everybody has a tough schedule.
Yeah.
The Canadiens have had an absolutely insane schedule from December running through January. And I think if they can kind of empty the tank between now and the 4 nations to give themselves the best possible positioning in what is a ridiculously tight playoff race, that should bode well for them coming back refreshed. And again, you ask me what's sustainable, what isn't. Their identity is sustainable. They know how they want to play. And then it comes down to execution.
I'll be in Montreal, by the way. So for the first time since I was 12. So I'm gonna need your Rex. You're gonna be there the whole time?
Yeah, we'll do dinner. I'll bring you.
Love that. Yeah,
you better bring your wallet because Johnny won't.
I'm not bringing mine.
It's okay. You can pay with your phone. I know he's on that very often.
Mine's broken, actually. It's not working.
Yeah, of course it is. Eric, it's. I'll repeat what I saw. I think Josh say in the chat. Hockey's better when the Montreal Canadiens are exciting. Hockey is better when the Bell Center has a real reason to get on their feet, and they're not, chanting for Flowers' 500th win as he's wearing another team's jersey. So it's good for hockey to see what's going on. We love talking about these guys. They're exciting. They make you turn on the TV right now. There's no doubt. So we appreciate your time today, and I'm sure we'll be checking in again soon with you as they either continue this climb or we'll see where they go the rest of the season.
Well, whether they do or not, and you said hockey's better when the Canadiens are exciting, a guy named Ivan Demidov will be here next year. So I think a lot of people will be tuning in to see what that's all about.
That's a good point. That is certainly a good point. He's a human highlight reel in the KHL right now. So
enjoy,
all
guys.
Right, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you,
right.
Eric. Really appreciate it. Awesome stuff from Eric Engels. I mean, Montreal right now, they're must-watch hockey, right? I mean, it's fun over there. They're in the playoffs, and how great would it be to see playoff hockey in the Bell Center again?
Yeah.
That'd
By the way,
huh?
I didn't say that Lane Hutson was a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL. I said the most elite people at what they do are built differently. I have a friend and know a couple people who have been in that line of duty, and they're just built differently. Like people that are the best of the best of the best have a different mentality that most people can't understand or can't wrap their head around. So I saw Tommy asking me that in the chat, and I don't know if his feelings got hurt when I said that, but you're going to have to go back to the tape because I certainly didn't compare, say Lane Hutson was either of those things. Lane Hudson's a superstar hockey player. So, that just to clarify that statement, because it seemed like some feelings were potentially hurt there. So, what do we got here, Johnny, for 365? And by the way, how do we not have a Proraso shaving kit for Pat? We got to get him.
Yeah, I know you say this all the time. We do.
We got to get him set up with all that stuff. I mean, he's perfect for it. I mean, he should be the face of them.
I agree. Maybe I'll send them an email today after we get off the show. There was one more thing I wanted to bring up. I don't know if you watched it. You probably didn't, because anything I send into the group chat you don't usually pay attention to. But the Seattle Kraken did a great feature on their video coaches yesterday. Tim and Brady, I believe it was Brady Morgan. I'm blanking on the last names, and I apologize because I just saw Piper Shaw's tweet. Piper does a great job with the Seattle Kraken broadcast. She put out the video. If you want to find it on Twitter, Piper's handle is at Piper Shaw, PiperShaw TV. It's like a 5-minute video about what goes into all the decisions that the video coaches make and how they communicate with the bench. It was actually brilliant. And last night in the Ranger game, there were 2 goals that were called off for an offsides review. And usually I'm kind of pissed off. Like, why are we challenging everything? Like, why are they, looking at a play that happened 30 seconds prior to the goal happening? But after watching this video, my perspective changed a little bit. Like, literally, as soon as the puck crosses the blue line, the video coaches are signaling down to the coach, like to Jess Campbell in her ear. That's an offside review if they score here. Like, they are on the money as it's happening. And I have such a big amount of respect for the offside review now, because there's a lot of pressure on these guys, but they're the
ones that make the decision. The challenges go from the video coaches to the assistant coach who's got the earpiece on, and then the assistant coach says something to the head coach. Like that's who initiates a challenge. I mean, in Chicago, Matt Meacham he was the video coach, has his own little war room where they're charting everything, they're reviewing everything, and every entry. They're already ready to go with all that. But you're right. Imagine sitting in that little video room as a video coach and saying to them,
there's like 1,500 things they clip a game.
You use the user challenge here, and then you're sitting there waiting to see if it's going to go right. Like, what a shitty feeling that must be for a video coach, sitting there waiting to see what they're going to call. That is a little bit of a thankless job in the game of hockey is being a video coach.
Yeah, but they also showed the behind the scenes. If anyone remembers, the Kraken, like, I think it was Jess Campbell who might have said something to the refs, but the Kraken got a penalty called on Nashville because they started the wrong starting lineup, which I had never seen that before. So you give your lineup card, and then they had Forsberg, who wasn't in the lineup card that was submitted, actually starting in the game. And on the first stoppage of play, I think Jess Campbell called over the ref and said, like, hey, they started the wrong guy, and they actually got a power play out of it. And that's the video coaches communicate. It was just a very unique perspective. And Colby and I have been talking about it lately, about how we want to get those kinds of perspectives on this show. So maybe we'll reach out to them and see if they'd come on as guests. We're trying to get, different kinds of guests on here. Yeah. We're gonna have one tomorrow. I know we've been teasing it a little bit, trying to work it out with the NHL, but Brant Berglund, who does a great job with NHL Edge and tracking data, should be on tomorrow. We've been talking with the NHL about getting approval for him to come on. So we're trying to get a unique guest on the show tomorrow for our chat. And I think everyone will have a different perspective on stats after listening to him speak, because he did a whole presentation at the Winter Classic, and he had my mind just like churning with how cool and unique all these little stats and data and pieces and angles and everything goes into a hockey game. I did retweet that Kraken video, but I tweeted a million times last night, so it's probably going to be hard to find. But I would just go to Piper Shaw or Jeff, I think, retweeted it as well. But I just wanted to bring that up too, because I thought it was really cool. And I'm a big complainer when it comes to offside challenge, but I found myself thinking last night, like, oh, it's actually, like, now that I like can picture in my head what's going on, it's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, the video coaches are literally at every entry. They're looking at that kind of stuff. So, I mean, in Chicago, they had 2 and sometimes even 3 video coaches on staff.
Yeah, these were just 2 guys. Yeah,
they're a big market team. They have big budgets, so that's totally different. Mark Crawford's son was actually the assistant video coach with Matt Meacham. Mark Crawford was coach in the National Hockey League for a very long time, head and assistant. I'm pretty sure he's in Vancouver now, Mark Crawford's son. I can't remember his first name, but it was cool. You had Mark Crawford on the staff as an assistant and his son as the assistant video coach. So that was pretty cool. Adam, I see you're asking if we've talked about the Danny Briere press conference at all. No,
I didn't see that.
I watched bits and pieces of it. I was in the car, so I just kind of had it on, through the Bluetooth. It wasn't, I didn't take anything overly exciting or newsworthy from it.
Just Jet Luchenko and Oliver Bonk stuff. That's all I really saw that came out of it.
Yeah, listen, I think listening to Danny talk and feel like his team has an identity and how they want to play and they want to be stingy, and then they go out against Detroit and, they only give up 1. And I'll give Sam Ersson credit. He made a lot of big saves in the last minute of that hockey game, and then the Flyers go out and get the win in overtime. But go watch it. Danny Briere spent a good amount of time doing a midseason press tour yesterday, press conference. But it didn't feel like there was it didn't feel like there was much there, Adam, which is why we didn't put it in the show for today. So I got something I got to do here at 10:30, Johnny. So let's do Bet365 and give everybody your losing pick of the night.
Well, it's not my pick. It's not my pick.
I think fade Johnny would be the way to roll right now. He's on a little bit of a 3-game cold streak right now.
Yeah, and I guess I'm boring you to death too. But we're going off the board, and we're taking Jeremiah's pick tonight. Jeremiah was on the money. I think as soon as the show started, when I asked someone to give me a bet, he said Winnipeg money line. So if we're going to blame anyone, I don't want to bet against Colorado personally. I think everyone knows how I feel about Colorado this year. But we will ride Jeremiah and trust Jeremiah and take Winnipeg money line on the road at plus money against the Colorado Avalanche. It's Hellebuck versus Blackwood, the two best goalies outside of Logan Thompson in the NHL right now. And I say that like kind of jokingly, but I'm actually kind of serious. Blackwood's been unreal. So that should be a fun game to watch. A lot of good hockey on tonight. And that's all I got for today's episode, Colby. We should have Brant Berglund on tomorrow. Really hoping that works out. He said he should be good for tomorrow. The NHL approved it. So I'll talk to him today and see what time we want him on. But it's going to be a little bit of like a teaching episode tomorrow about what's into the NHL Edge and tracking data.
Yeah, and I don't ever really look at that, so I'll be interested. I mean, I see the commercials for NHL Edge and tracking data, and I know there's like a separate website for it. And now I know that within the box scores, that NHL Edge data is somewhat embedded into it. So yeah, I mean, should be interesting. We'll see. I'll let you know after if I think it's interesting.
I do have one more thing actually, because J-Rock's been cracking me up honestly all day. And the first thing he said here, I didn't want it to get lost. He had a comment early on in the show, and I said the Rangers might be back or something. He was like, when I said Sloan said the Rangers are back. J-Rock said, so Johnny and a literal child are the only ones who think they're back. LOL. I thought that was really funny.
We've actually trained my 2-year-old to come on the pre-show meeting every morning and tell Johnny that she thinks the Rangers suck.
She literally just looks at me and goes, Rangers suck.
She doesn't even say hi, Johnny, anymore. Now she just looks at him and says Rangers suck, which is then Johnny turns around and says
I said, you suck.
nasty things back to a 2-year-old. So you see the maturity level that we're dealing with here. When you see Johnny boy, someone attacking.
I can't yell at Colby because I don't have the strength to do it. So I just take it out on his daughter.
He literally goes for my 2-year-old. It's probably only a matter of time before she's dunking on him too. But good show today. It was great to have Pat. If you love Pat Maroon, you should just like the episode. Let's make this the most liked episode we've ever had. That's the goal. The Ryan Whitney episode had a lot of likes. Let's make a Pat Maroon episode the most liked episode of all time. And look, if Pat's dealing with some injury stuff, maybe we'll get him on the show more often. I mean, maybe you just bring him in and let him just chop it up in some of these topics. He doesn't seem afraid to weigh in on other players and other player situations, which is great. Johnny, it sounds like they're coming to get you, pal. Let's subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube page. Let's make this the most liked episode we've had. Hopefully we have Brant Berglund tomorrow. You guys can obviously look him up. Works for the National Hockey League. It sounds like the architect behind the NHL Edge program. We'll see. I struggle with people that are like only stats matter.
But he's a hockey background. He was a Bruins video coach for 8 years.
Right.
And he went to BU.
All right. Well, we'll see.
You're gonna love him.
As long as he doesn't come on here and try to tell me the only way to evaluate players is with statistics, I can't. Yeah. I can't do it.
One more thing from the chat though. J-Merk, no Rempe goal mention equals no like. That
was a nice goal.
No, but one of the funnier things that were tweeted at me last night when Rempe scored, I made the caption on the tweet Nice of Connor McDavid to lend his hands to Rempe for the 3-game suspension. And someone replied to me saying, well, Rempe let McDavid borrow the cross check, so it's only fair. I thought that was like pretty funny. Like the two of them just like switching roles. McDavid cross checking people in the face, getting suspended. Rempe scoring a beautiful breakaway backhand top shelf goal. Like
it wasn't top shelf. It was like kind of
it was like back bar down. It was sick.
That's not true, but it was a nice goal. It was good play by Edstrom though to continue to track the puck. But
that's
look,
top shelf.
That's it's high up there, but it's not under the bar. So let's not. It was a nice move. The puck was rolling. Give the kid credit. You want to fight about
Matt Rempe right now?
What?
You really want to fight about Matt Rempe
No,
right now?
the show's over. I got to go on a Zoom call here in a couple of minutes. So I got to get off the show here. So again, let's make this the most liked episode we've ever had. If you're audio only, get to the YouTube, give us a like. If you are audio only, give us the automatic download. I have it set on my phone for Spotify, for Apple Podcasts, just automatic download, right? That way it's there for you. If you get on a plane, you don't have service, especially you take one of those little puddle jumpers with no Wi-Fi, you don't have to worry because you've already got the show downloaded, right? So just make it a part of your routine. We do appreciate that. Brant Berglund, hopefully from the National Hockey League tomorrow. Thursday, we'll close out the show. We'll give you our Out West Worst Team of the Week tomorrow. And we'll dive into some things that happen over the next 24 hours. DFO live in an hour and a half. The Sheet at 3. Tuesdays with Wyshynski's on the Sheet.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think Wednesday is a little more of an open day for him. And then towards the latter half of the week, I know he gets Berkey on, which is always great segment. So we appreciate everybody, and we will see everybody right back here 9 a.m. tomorrow.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.